Welcome back to our IotaView training series. In the previous video, we have learned how to find and visualize data using drag and drop. Now, we're taking a step further in our dashboard creation by focusing on visualizing the status of all pumps in Station 1. For this, we'll utilize a key IotaView feature, training a component. Training a component allows us to specify what data the component should display, and in our example, we're interested in showing only the status of each pump, not other attributes like horsepower. Let's dive into how this works. As you can see, each pump has multiple attributes, but our goal is to display only their status in this table. While we could manually add each status, the component training feature streamlines this process. Start by dragging an asset with the pump template onto your table. A pop-up window for training the component appears, where you can map the attributes you want to display. Here, we select only the status attribute. Now, notice you have two choices, train only or train and add. We'll choose train only because our aim is to later add all pumps at once. Train and add would additionally populate the specific asset onto the table, which is not what we need. Next, multi-select all pumps from Station 1, using the Control key for Windows or the Command key for Mac, and drag them onto the table. You'll notice the table, now trained, correctly shows only the status of each pump. Currently, it's not clear which pump status we're viewing. To fix this, let's transpose the rows to columns for a clearer asset table. Simply go to the table settings. And in the component-specific section, check the transpose box. You might also notice default columns like asset name and template. For a more streamlined view, you can easily remove unnecessary columns, such as the template, in the same section. You can find and configure the mapped attributes in this attribute mapping section. This section allows you to either exclude the trained content by excluding the whole channel, or adjust settings to display alternative attributes. It's worth noting that while our table was trained using a single template, the real strength of this feature lies in its versatility. You can train a component on multiple templates, enabling the same component to display varied attributes depending on the template used. This adds a layer of customization and adaptability, enhancing the component's utility across different contexts. For more details, watch the deep dive on training components. Now, let's train the rest of our components. This is a key step to ensure that each component correctly displays the specific attribute from our pump template. Remember, at the end, we want by selecting a pump on this table to pass the data to all other components. For this to happen effectively, each component must beforehand be trained to display the right attribute of the pump, not all attributes at once. We'll start with the line chart, configuring it to show just the efficiency. This time, click Train and Add, allowing us to take a look at the data. Next, let's train the value component to show run hours since maintenance. When you add the pump to the bar chart, you'll encounter a different set of options. Here, you have additionally the flexibility to map elements as limits or set point. We'll cover this in more detail in our next video. For now, simply search for bearing temperature. Then click Train and Add. Finally, we'll configure the gauge to display the horsepower. This time, when clicking on Train and Add, another window appears, making it easier to pre-configure the gauge specific to the data you add. You can always adjust the settings later in the Settings tab. For our purposes, we'll modify the indicator type to an arc and increase its weight for better visibility. The gauge will default to the limit set in your database, which is quite convenient. However, in our case, we want to establish custom limits ranging from 0 to 50 horsepower. As for the second table, it's the only component intended to display all attributes of the pump. This means there's no need to train it like the others. With the components now properly trained, our next step is to customize their settings. We'll add titles to the gauge and bar for clarity, introduce a legend to the value component, change fonts, and more. After this video, you now know two ways to visualize data in IOTA: the straightforward drag and drop for quick tag visualization, and component training for data structured in assets and attributes. In our next video, we'll explore the various configuration options available within the settings of different components. Thanks for watching.